So now it's time to look at how Symantec can help empower your users, no matter what devices they use. Maribel Lopez served 10 years as the VP and Senior Analyst at Forrester before founding Lopez Research in 2008. Today, she's a sought-after speaker and consultant and a regular contributor to Forbes, Information Week, and other business and industry publications. Welcome Symantec's Senior Vice President, Fran Rosch of Mobility, and the founder of Lopez Research, Maribel Lopez.
Good morning, everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Maribel, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
It seems like afternoon already. So, as Stephen said, we want to talk a little bit about mobility today, and particularly how companies are incorporating mobile devices into their environments and how they're keeping their information kind of secure. So tell us a little bit about your perspective on mobility in the enterprise, and what do you see are sort of the key trends that we could share with the audience?
Yeah, I'd say first thing, it's a real intense time of change in the IT landscape in general. We've got mobile, we've got social, we've got cloud computing, big data and analytics. So lots of change, right? Lots of excitement, lots of challenges. About 74% of the companies we interviewed actually said that mobile was their top concern for 2014. And that's a big percentage of companies. So clearly, mobile's moving forward at a rapid pace in organizations.
Great.
We see, in some of the conversations I've had and in some of the surveys we've done, the real top three concerns are security, app development, and management and support of mobile devices. That's really what people are struggling with today.
Great. One of the things that we hear, I want to get your opinion on, is that a lot of companies have deployed a lot of mobile device management, kind of the basic functionality required to get the devices, enabled up and running. But now they're really looking at mobile devices as like to actually take their business processes off of the traditional endpoint and move those business processes to the mobile. Do you hear that trend about moving business processes and more the application level at the device?
Up until 2013, I think all the dialogue was centered on BYOD and then BYOX, bring your own services, bring your own apps. And I think 2014 was the first year that we really started to hear companies talking about mobile enabling business processes. Over half of the companies we spoke with said they want to have more than 10 apps up and running by 2015. And that's a big change, because last year it was all about email and calendar and ActiveSync on a wide range of devices. So huge transition in the space, I think.
And as that transition happens, then a lot of that sensitive information that is contained in those business processes are then moving out to those devices, and solutions are needed for that.
Right.
So I think you mentioned a little bit around BYOD, sort of BY everything these days. And I know that for myself, I've got my own Android phone, I've got my own iPad, and I have my company-issued Lenovo. I'm still a Lenovo guy. How do you see BYOD and BY everything? I think it's here to stay, but what's kind of your perspective there?
Yeah, I mean, BYOD, BYOX is not a fad. It's not just a thing that millennials do. I think that all of you in the audience are struggling with this right now. We see people are still building strategies around BYO. Your experience with devices is not unlike what I have in my world and probably what you have in all of your worlds. You've got fitness bands, you've got phones, you've got tablets, you've got PCs. So, Maribel is no longer a single device or single endpoint. But I think the challenge that we're having now, and somebody correct me later and give me their thoughts on this, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This concept of focusing on devices, we're probably a little too focused on the device right now. And we really need to broaden our scope and think about not just managing and securing devices, but managing and securing applications, managing and securing content. And that's really how we're going to get that productivity on mobile that we all so desperately desire for our businesses.
So when companies look at trying to mobile and secure those applications, what approaches are they taking to that you see in the marketplace that the companies here should consider?
Right. So there was a ton of focus on MDM a year or two ago, and I think we started to evolve this notion to enterprise mobility management. And I really look at enterprise mobility management as one of the foundations of being a mobile-enabled company. And that's where you move beyond just looking at devices. EMM is about looking at the apps, looking at the content, how to manage and secure all of that. So it's not just the device, but it's what the users are doing with the device, who the user is. And that's an evolution that we've seen happen over several years in the space. I mean, I know you actually have some products in that category as well. You've looked at App Center and Symantec Sealed, and now we're talking about mobile DLP. So there's a lot of focus on not just the device, but what's the content. And I think that's a really important trend and the right direction for the industry to go right now.
That's great, and I'll tell the group a little bit about what we're doing later, but when you look at the maturity of this space, like, is this kind of like, new horizon, just people still figuring it out? Are we getting to more of a mature curve? Still a lot of change to come. Where do you think we are in that kind of horizon?
If this were a ball game, we're probably in the second inning. If it were a maturity curve, we're pretty much down here at this side. I think what we've really come to in the past year is that everybody has accepted that mobile is a part of business, and it's something that we need to move forward with. And it's an expansion of our computing environment. So that was stage one. Stage two is how do we actually make that something that is usable, that has the right security and compliance around it, but doesn't cripple the benefits of what we want to do with mobile. We use mobile because mobile's easy, it's convenient, and we don't want to wreck it with security either. So we want to make some of this seamless in the background for users, but still secure enough that our auditors are happy and that we don't lose anything important in the process.
So that sounds like an incredibly kind of daunting challenge. In one hand, you're saying everybody's got to be able to use mobile devices for their work, just like they use their regular PCs. But the company's not going to control them because they're going to be BYO. You can't wreck the user experience. Still got to feel like they're using their iPad or their Android just like they were at home. And all the information has to be kept safe, and the auditors have to be kept happy. So pretty daunting challenge. So if you have some people out in the audience that are security professionals or IT professionals, what guidance would you give them for sifting through all the information that's out there and finding the right solution for their organization, given that we're only in the second inning and there's probably going to be a lot more things to come?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is that there's a lot of change and that you constantly need to be evaluating how the market's progressing, because it does seem to move in 3-month increments now instead of 6 to 12. The second thing is that EMM foundation that we were talking about. I think it's really important that you all be looking at that and how that integrates with your security strategy. I also think you should be thinking about the future of IoT. Many organizations don't think this applies to them. They think it's fitness devices and other things, but we need to think of devices as a range of connected devices, everything from PCs through IoT. And that's going to get us back to things like endpoint management and managing and securing a broad range of devices. So when I look at this, I look at us as having islands. We're building lots of islands to manage each individual thread. And I think we need to start building holistic strategies around how do I manage a wide range of endpoints that go from PCs through IoT without them all being islands? How do I secure those? How do I build apps that can scale up and down across that platform? How do I not protect just the app, but also protect the content? So starting to think about, yes, I've said that this is an app that you can use in BYO or not BYO, but what about the specific content within that app? What can be shared? What can be downloaded to devices? How do I track where that's gone? All of this is going to be an important part of the strategy, I think, for organizations.
That's good, and I read some of your articles that you've written on this topic, and I think, so when you talk about application protection, or you're saying it's not really application protecting, who cares about the application? It's about the data that's flowing through that application. And when you say protect, you mean you could stop somebody from taking that contract information or price information or social security numbers out of that app,
right,
and put it out of the work ecosystem into the private ecosystem. Those are the type of controls that we put on that information. Right. The app is just a control point where you exercise that control.
I think of the app as the house, right? So you have a house, and you want to protect people from breaking into the house. And then if they break into the house, you want to say, okay, I don't want you to be able to get access to the jewels, right? So there's levels of these things. Hopefully it never even comes to that. But even if it's not a malicious thing, let's just say your users want to use an app, You don't want to cripple them from being able to use the app, but you want to make sure that the right data within that application is secured. So it's really thinking about what are the use cases and what really needs to be secured at what level. So I do believe it's still a layered model in terms of what we're doing, but I think it's really important that you think of how people are going to use which devices, what data they're going to access, and then what parts of that you need to secure. I call this contextual management, actually.
So that's a fancy term, so I just want to make sure I understand it. So when I think contextual management, I think of Google Now, where they kind of just tap into my phone somehow and figure out that I have meetings or schedules and then help me, guide me through my day with some of that stuff. It's a little scary sometimes, but it is effective. So how does that apply to the enterprise and what we're talking about this morning?
Yeah, so that's a great example. So if you think of something like Google Now, they're actually in this process of looking at your calendar, looking at location, looking at things you've done in the past, pulling all these together. You plop that into an enterprise environment, it's the same thing. So it's saying, this is Maribel's role, this is the type of content she should have access to. Gee, it seems like it's 3 in the morning in a hostile foreign land and she's trying to access documents she shouldn't normally access, right? So this is a contextual security
patterns
concept.
And things like
so
that.
It's about the identity of Maribel. Is that her? Is it the right device? Is it the right behavior? Is it the right location? You know, pulling together all this information and deciding, no, that doesn't make sense at this time.
Great.
Or it does make sense, and we should give her access to whatever she needs in this particular location in this way.
Great. I want to ask you one more question to give some advice from the audience, because you said a couple interesting things, keying in that second inning in mobile. But you also said that eventually, today, customers have many different solutions. They have one for their PCs and Macs, they have another one for their mobile. They might be researching what to do with IoT.
Yeah.
You know, how do you give them guidance on the timing here? When do you see these solutions all coming together to more of a unified approach, and should they get started now buying these point solutions until that happens? How would you guide the audience on that?
Yeah, I think we're in the process of collapsing those islands, but I don't think we're quite there yet. So I would say to people, you do need to act now because you do need to manage and secure and empower your employees. But you need to look for vision, which I guess is what this conference is all about at the end of the day. People that have vision about where the future is going to be and making this a simpler process for you over time, and really not making mobile so separate from everything else that you do in your organization.
Great. All right, well, Maribel, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Give Maribel
Thanks,
Lopez
everybody.
a big round of applause.